So I guess like most of my life I was um, working on getting to that point. And then in the year before medical school, I started to focus on visuals and animation, and then became eventually became an animator. But that was like at the same time, right before I started medical school.
Not
Um,
okay.
and then yeah, in medical school, I continued doing that on the weekends and whatnot, and eventually ended found my way here to crypto art, which I'm sure
Cool.
is what probably caught your attention. But yeah, so I know that's very basic, but I figured I would leave it open so that you could ask more or go more in depth if you wanted.
Sure, of course, I definitely want to. When did you realize you wanted to go into the cryptocurrency space, like into the NFT space?
A few months ago,
And what
honestly.
was that thing that said, I want to do it? Like how did you like tell me about the day when you discovered like this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I think like one of my friends was kind of interested in it, and she was taking notes and really like learning a lot. And I just saw a lot of value in the fact that like you finally had the power in your hands, I guess, because like in the music industry, like we are not collaborated with as visual artists. Like we are paid and it's client work.
Right.
So like that was what really drew me, was when I was like, wait a minute, like they're my projects, and if I bring a music artist on, they are a collaborator. They are not my client. I I bring more of the value in this space than like maybe a music artist would at the time right now, because like right now you can't mint a MP3. You can only mint an MP4, visual or a still image. And so I think for me, like that was kind of one of the things that like perked my ear up to being like, wait, okay. So first, not only will I like be able to like do that, but I'm also, it's the first time I get to make artwork for myself. Because as a visual
Right.
artist, I've always done client work, and that client work is making art for someone else's vision. And
Right.
traditionally, I've been like a chameleon where I've like been able to adapt myself to whatever like artist I'm going to work with. So I throw
Right.
myself in and I try to become that artist, and like imagine what I would want for that vision. But now I get to like come up with my own vision that represents me and what I want to kind of
Do.
spread, or what message I want to spread. So I
So
think
let me ask you a question, right? Now that you're
yeah.
saying that, because as an artist, I completely understand everything you're telling me. How hard is it to design for yourself?
It's really hard. It's harder than you'd think, like, coming up with your own concept is really tricky, and especially when you're traditionally trained to do client work your whole life. I'm used to having a creative brief, I'm used to having some place to start, and now I have to come up with the ideas from the start, and like the music is a secondary thought in terms of like like I do the artwork first, then I animate it, and then the music comes in. And so
Okay.
like, yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
It's
It's
tough.
much
It's tough.
easier
Like
than
I've been
I
doing web design for years, and people would ask me, like, I mean, like now I have a website, but for many years, even though I was doing websites for different companies, small businesses, all kinds of different clients, they would be like, "Let me see your website." I'm like, "It's in production," because I didn't know how to design for myself, because
yeah.
my style changed every day, like you adapt to what's, around you, so I couldn't like look into myself and see, okay, like who am I exactly? Okay, my website show, and then I'd have to look at other people's stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit of this and a little. I mean, it was just like it was a mess. And then
Yeah.
that's when I finally decided, be minimal, Natalie. Just be minimal, and then just add, and share your creative work. Don't worry about making the website creative. That was like I had to just tell myself, don't make the website creative. Just make the website plain, and then just make the work that you represent creative. And that was how I had to like and that worked for me. You know, otherwise I'd
Yeah.
be trying to do all kinds of different magic tricks all day long. So like I totally get it when that's why I wanted to ask you that question, because it's such a difficult thing. Even for me, like I minted a couple pieces on OpenSea, and then I started listening on you know, different rooms in Clubhouse. Just then I started going online and started getting more involved and learning more about the NFT and getting more engaged with the NFT community. And then like last night, I'm like, I'm pulling all my stuff out and I'm doing something completely
Yeah.
different.
I've
I
been
do not like what I came up with. That is
Yeah.
not how I want to be introduced into the NFT. And I literally spent the entire night taking everything, ripping it right off, and then just coming up with a whole different concept. Because I think that when you see other artwork, you're like, you get even more inspired, you know? So, like, tell me, who are the people
Yeah,
that
for
inspire
sure.
you?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to reply to you first, on like your website thing because I had such a similar experience. Like I haven't had a website since I was started as a visual artist until I came into the crypto art space, and I was like, okay, I need to have a website now. And that's the first time I had a website, and I had my friend help me. So like, yeah, I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's hard. And then people say
Yeah,
like, how do you do web design for people, graphic design for people, and you don't even have your own website? And I'm like, yeah, exactly.
I love it. Yeah, that's great.
But that's how you know you're talented, when they don't even like, my whole thing is, you don't like, what do you need me to do? And let me give you um you know, let me give you a draft. Like sometimes people are like, oh, do you think you could do a a logo for me? And I wanted this. I'm like, all right, give me about an hour and I'll send it to you. And they're like, an hour? I was like, yeah, like you want a logo, right? So I'm gonna send it to you. And then let me, and they're like, you can do it in an hour. And then I had to be really careful how I like with certain people that I say that, because some people don't value your work if you could do it too fast.
Yeah, I've heard that happening, with people I collaborate with. They're like, "Are you okay if I do it fast?" I'm like, "Girl, do it fast. Like, get it to me as fast as you can. Like,
Right.
whatever." But yeah, that's really interesting you say that.
Now,
I
some
feel
people don't.
they don't like that. Yeah.
I don't like it because I like to be able to get it done, get my money, and keep it going. But there are
Yeah.
some people that when you do it too fast, and this is just from experience, they completely devalue it because they look at it like, well, if she was able to do it that fast, then why should I pay her this much? So
Yeah.
then I would just do it, and then I tell them, all right, well, let me see what I can do. It's done. It's been done.
Yeah, it's been done, but you're like, you just sit it there and you wait. I'm the worst. I like am so impatient when I have to send something off that like I just send it right away. So I would really struggle with that.
Yeah,
That's
trust
great
me,
you
I
said you
struggle.
did stuff for people because he's actually one of the people that has inspired me for a really long time, and not specifically in like crypto. I mean, that was awesome when he joined into the crypto art space, but like way, way before when I became a visual artist, he was one of the people that like I used to follow and just yeah, he's done so much for this community. So he's definitely one of my biggest inspirations. And I actually he was the artist spotlight that I did when I took a concept art course, and then you had to like cover an artist that inspires you. He was the
Right.
person that I presented on. And then my concept art teacher sent me a message after he sold his NFT and was like, "Holy smokes, I'm so glad you introduced me to him in the class because like yeah, I never would have I didn't even know who he was, and you know now he's like so mainstream and everybody knows about him because of
Yeah.
like what he's done in the NFT space. And I was actually in the clubhouse room when his auction was going on, like his end of
Oh, you
auction.
were in the room when they
I
was
was in the room, and I was just like it was crazy, like, it was, like, 24, then it was 30, then it was 40, and then all of a sudden it was like, "Holy smoke, 69," like, that's insane.
I'm
So, yeah,
telling you, I couldn't believe that.
no, I mean and he was like, "I can't even believe he stayed on Clubhouse." I would have been off. I would have been like, "Bye, guys. I need to go freak out right now." And he, like, held it together till it closed and stayed there to, like, be there with the people that supported him, which was just, like, really impressive because I think I would have been having a heart attack. And yeah, so
For
that was pretty
sure,
cool for me
for
to
sure.
witness like that and be in that room. So, yeah.
I can totally
Yeah.
understand that. Yeah, I definitely I when I learned about that sale, I definitely started learning more about him. I'm like, okay, who's this people guy? How did he make this happen? You know? What are some other people that you see in the NFT space that inspires you?
Yeah, sure. I have a couple like closer friends that are quite inspiring to me. Like,
Okay.
one of there's a 3D artist. He goes by like Ness Graphics. He's really talented, and his stuff is going for like, for me it's a lot of money. It's like 20 ETH or whatever, and like,
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a lot.
yeah, it's a good chunk of change. Like, it isn't
Yeah.
the same as people, but oh my goodness, like, but he's just like, really, the way that he carries himself is quite humble, and it's
Okay.
been really cool to see how he structures a lot of like the way he treats his collectors, the way that he structures his drops. A lot of that has been quite inspiring to me in terms of like NFT space. There's a few other people. I think there's like a lot of different reasons. Like, there's people that inspire me via their artwork, and I feel like um, one of the people that like artwork I admire, but she's quite new to the space, is this girl named Violetta,
Uh-huh.
and her artwork is just like unreal. And she comes from a country where like the money that she's able to make in this space is like the money she makes like on one piece is like the money she would make in a month. So I just think that's incredible
Wow.
to like
Wow.
yeah, she really inspires me. And she spends a lot of time on her artworks, and you can tell. So
Right.
yeah, and then I'm trying to think. Yeah, I have a couple other people that really um push me and whatnot in this space. And so yeah, I could keep going on about all the people I admire.
So where do you live now? What state are you in?
I live in Minnesota, but I also spend time in LA. So I'm kind of in between the two. And right now I'm
Okay.
spending more time in Minnesota just because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And if it were normal times, though, I'd probably be splitting my time quite equally between LA and Minnesota, because I travel with a lot of the artists to do live visual events and things like that.
Yeah, tell me
So
about more about what it is that you do.
yeah, so I'm a VJ, so it's a video jockey, I should say
Okay.
that for someone that might not know. And I basically chop together videos on a screen behind a DJ or a music artist while they're playing. And I also
Cool.
animate and create the visuals. So I do a lot of my like main focus is show design. So
Okay.
I design animations and just like really brand out a show, and we'll make visuals for each song. For some artists we're making more basic visual packages that they can just be used throughout their show. But yeah,
Right.
there's a number of artists I work with, and I design their shows. And then some of the bigger artists that I work with, we're designing everything from like, I have a list where I'm like putting down for every song what the lighting call is going to be, what the special effects is going to be, where the photographer or videographer should be to get whatever shot that we're looking for. Um,
And do you
my
do all this
my visuals.
do you do it all live? I mean,
Yeah,
or do you plan this out? Like, is it
I
planned out prior
I
to the?
plan it out, and then I'm on a headset with the rest of the team, like the lighting designer and the SFX, and I'll be calling the show. So I will say like, okay, visuals are coming down. Now we're bringing up, and maybe I'm describing the um, type of light, like maybe it's a fan light, or maybe it's, and we're bringing that up slowly, or we're bringing it up quickly, or we're hitting that on the drop only, or like green lasers are going to come in on the drop.
Right.
And we're so like all of that is kind of planned out, but then there's some of it that's on the fly that you kind of do based on the way the crowd is reacting and stuff like that.
Okay, that sounds
So
pretty
yeah.
dope. What is like
Yeah.
your favorite concert like that you did visuals for?
I think EDC, because I did 5 artists,
Hmm.
actually 6 artists, but five like sets on 3 different stages, and I had like a month and a half to put together. Like, a lot of them were brand new visuals, so it's quite fun when you have like a whole bunch of new visuals to play with.
Right.
So I think that was probably my favorite festival, just because I got to work with a lot of my favorite artists that I work with, and really like put together a really neat
A,
show.
a pretty cool show. That sounds pretty
Yeah.
cool. Do you have like maybe like clips or something that you can share and then maybe I can add it,
Yeah.
to the podcast or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
also have like a recap of my visual stuff from last year, so you can also share that if you want.
Awesome. So yeah, send that over and then
Yeah.
I'll include it into the podcast so they can really see like, what it is that you're doing. So
Yeah.
what is your tell me a little bit about, have you minted anything yet on an NFT platform?
Yeah, I have. I've done stuff on Foundation and I've done stuff on OpenSea. Currently, I have a like series out on OpenSea that is kind of the one I'm like talking about at the moment. So,
So tell us about that series. Let's talk about that.
yeah, so that series is 5 pieces. They're editions of 4, and they're all centered around mental health. So 4 or like a few of them are centered around mental health illness. One
Okay.
of them is centered around empathy and love, like self love.
Okay.
And then one
I
of
like
them
that.
is centered around intrusive thoughts. And so the other 3, now I'm explaining them kind of in a confusing way. So the first piece is self love and empathy. The second piece is about bipolar disorder.
Okay.
The third piece is about intrusive thoughts, which is a common thing like experienced by people with anxiety and depression.
Okay.
The fourth piece is about anxiety. And the fifth piece is about panic disorder and agoraphobia. So those are the 5 pieces. They're like I worked with another artist who did the drawings, and then I did the animation and the music for them.
Wow. That is so awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I'm
I'll
going
def
to I will share those
Yeah,
when we edit. I'll include the pieces so that they can definitely see what it is that
yeah.
you're doing. How long did it take you to create let's say the first one, the self-love?
Yeah, so the artist who drew them, she actually works really fast. So she's the perfect example of someone that's like, I hope this isn't too fast.
Okay.
But she
Right.
worked super fast and over a couple days was able to get me all the drawings. And I took about 1 day on each piece to do the animation. And
Okay.
then it took me a day to do the music for all of them. So it probably took about 6 days of work to do all of the 5 pieces.
Pieces. And so I know that you had mentioned before that on OpenSea, I mean not OpenSea, on I guess like on Foundation, you can only um do like a MP4, not an MP3,
Mhm.
right? So I guess it'll include the music in the MP4, right? With
Mhm.
everything. So you
Yep.
just can't do something that's just plain music. It has to have, okay.
Yeah, currently, but they're trying to change that and they say it's coming soon, but I don't know when soon is because
Yeah.
it's been like a month and a half uh that I've seen it saying coming soon and it still hasn't come. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
because I have a lot of I have some artists that, they want to be able to like get in the NFT space. They do, some of them do music. And I said, well, I mean, you don't want to just put your music on an NFT, you want to incorporate it with some type of visual
Yeah.
because that's what it's all about. It's creating like some kind of experience. So, now they're kind of coming to terms that they're gonna have to have like a vision. They're gonna need to collaborate with visual artists.
Yeah. And it's great. I love seeing it make people uncomfortable a little bit, like pushing them, not maybe uncomfortable is not the right word, but like pushing them to collaborate with visual artists and like it's
Yes,
great to see it. But yeah, there is a definite space for music artists. They're loved and seen as equal, it's not we in return are collaborating with them despite the fact that the music industry traditionally hasn't collaborated with
right.
us. So I think like that's just something to like yeah, keep in mind that like it is a collaborative environment and entirely for every artist involved.
Were you have you ever got involved in art, like selling art outside of NFT, like just doing visual art?
Oh yeah, I mean I sell animation, like, that's my main thing that I do is make animation packages for live events, and
Okay.
I do lyric videos, I do music videos, like animated music videos,
Okay, cool.
yeah, and you can see a couple of them as well, like, there's a project called Pushing Daisies that I've done all the artwork,
Is it on your Instagram?
visuals. Yeah, it's on my Instagram. You
Okay.
can see them. There's, um like, pulling them up. I'll show you on here. So, like, this one is one of them, um, and this one is one of them, and
Oh, that
then
is
so is
so
this one. So those are the lyric videos.
oh, that is so cool.
Mhm.
So would you say like for the ones that you did like on foundation, you said that you did one that it took about 6 days. Is that the average time it usually takes for you to put together each
That
project?
was actually for the one on OpenSea that took
Okay.
me 6 days. Those were, like, the whole collection took that long.
Okay.
A lot of times it takes sometimes can take even longer, it just depends, like, these specific lyric videos take me longer than 6 days. Like, to do the artwork, it takes me typically, like, 2 days. The animation takes a week. The rendering alone takes probably a whole day on its own. And the music artist also does his own work of creating that song, and so, like, that also is time that goes into those pieces, so I honestly it takes me even longer to do something like a lyric video than it does, for me to do just, like, a loop or something like that.
Okay. And out of all your pieces, which is the one that like, makes your heart smile?
I think for me, it's the, love medicine piece, which is this one. Oh, hold on.
Oh, okay. I think I've seen that piece on your Instagram.
Yeah, and it mainly because, it's about self-love, and I think it's something that we don't do enough of. So I think, like, that piece is my favorite because the ghost is also not really receiving the love in the way that you would expect, like, he's not smiling, he just doesn't really
Right.
know how to receive the love, and I
Right.
think that's, like, really indicative of, like, the way that we struggle to receive our own love, and our own self empathy, and that's honestly, like, quite hard for most people, more so than it is to show empathy towards other people. So that's my favorite piece. It's also the first piece I've made that's, like, positively looking at mental health, kind of,
Yeah.
where, like, a lot of mine are, like, expressing what I've been through, and they're quite dark, and so I think, yeah, that's why I like that piece the most.
That's so cool. I like that piece too. I remember seeing
Mhm.
that one. Self-love, man, is a very interesting topic. I mean, even for me, because and that's pretty much why I wrote, I mean, I came up with the podcast was because I felt like a lot of people are really missing out on doing that, you know? I didn't even realize that I needed to apply self-love to myself for many years, until when I just felt like the walls were closing in on me. And I'm like, why do I feel so stressed out? And I realized it was because I was always trying to please everybody else but myself. Like I was always putting myself last, putting myself last. And you think that you're doing some type of justice or you're like, well, I always put people ahead of me. Like you think that it's a noble thing to do, but it actually it can destroy a person because you lose yourself in that process, and now you find all of your time is being given for other people. And what hurts, I think, more than anything, it's not too bad when you're surrounded by people who can reciprocate and and be there for you. But I think when you start to realize like all the people that I'm here for aren't here for me, then I need to really like evaluate what it is that I'm doing with myself, and then start to like look into yourself and figure out, I need to spend more time with myself. Why am I going down, going through all of these pressures or dealing with all of these stresses? And I feel like rather than spending years saying, well, people are bad and I'm just going to have to be by myself and this is the way it's going to be, I feel like, well, why can't we have a conversation about self love, or just have a conversation about why are we hurting each other more than helping each other or loving each other, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're saying really, really speaks to me, especially the part about like, not showing yourself self-love and losing your sense of self. You get so caught up in pleasing other people that you start to make decisions surrounding pleasing other people rather than decisions that represent who you are.
Right.
And like it can be a really, really nasty cycle. I've made some really big mistakes trying to please other people.
I think we
And
all have.
yeah, and then you're left with nothing in the end, and sometimes you're left in an even lower point to where you are, and,
Yeah.
like, then you have nothing to give anyone else,
Right.
or yourself, and that's no good for anybody, so, like, yeah, I 100%, like, yeah, that really speaks to me because I completely agree with you, and I constantly battle with that, with
And one of the things that and one of the things why I really love the NFT community is because I feel like we can all relate on that level. I think that we all have like mutual, I guess some values, that we share. Especially like, like I'm gonna give you an example. Like I remember like last night I spoke with um I was like, I just got caught off guard. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't remember his name, but we met on Clubhouse, and we chatted for a little bit, and we wanted to work with each other. And then he called me and he says, I'm going to this meeting, and I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. So we were just kind of like talking. He's like, all right, when I get at the meeting, I'll let you know, I could really use some help from you. I'm like, all right, no problem. And he called me back. He was so excited because everything went well for the meeting. I think he's putting together like an NFT exhibit, with artists and stuff. And just everything that he had been planning out is just like finally working out. And then I sent a message from him and he was like, can I call you? And I'm like, sure. And then he calls me and he's just like, it was probably like maybe like almost 1 in the morning. I mean, I was up, of course, doing artwork, designing online, listening to Clubhouse. And he was just like, oh my God, this and that happened. And it just, what was funny was that he was so excited, he just wanted to share, you know? And I think as artists, like when we share certain things that happen for us, people don't get it. They're like, oh, okay, But when you're an artist and you're talking to another artist and you're like, oh my God, this would happen, you can feel that joy, like you get it,
Mhm.
you know? And so it was so nice. Like it was like we sat on the phone and I'm like, and he's just telling me, he's like, yeah, and then this happened and we're gonna do this. And I was like, and it was so refreshing to, be able to have a conversation with someone and be happy for them genuinely, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And want to help them. And I mean, for me, it is because like I've always been surrounded by people that are like, oh, art, like I've always had to be a loner because I was not surrounded by people who were into art. Or if they were into a very old fashion, style of art. They didn't see like digital art having value. Like, oh my gosh, you like another digital art, like they just don't see it. So it's like now that I'm able to be in this community of people that are artists, I feel like we have so much that we can finally share with each other and we can understand each other's, emotions. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so true though, and I think Clubhouse offers a really nice space so that you can meet people from all over the world that are interested in similar things to what you're interested in. And that bond really allows you to push yourself as well because it's kind of like growing stronger together.
Yeah.
And I just think it's awesome to see how like the synergistic like coupling of like two people passionate about a similar thing and just watching how much more it grows. It's not 2 times, it's like 10 times the
Yeah,
strength. And
exactly.
it's amazing to see that. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, I couldn't, so he was just like, we gotta definitely work. I'm like, whatever you need, let's do this, let's make it happen. And I see that from a lot of different people in the NFT community. They're always like, they're working with each other. Even when you come on, you'll hear like, hey, I work with this guy, he was great. Like people are making like, strong bonds on Clubhouse, especially in the NFT community, because again, like finally, you're amongst people that can see the value in the type of skills that you have, and everyone can work with each other. The fact that, we can collaborate with different artists to come up with one, cool NFT, I think is so amazing. Being able to collaborate with, visuals and design and lyrics and music and all of those things is just like, it's totally incredible. Let me ask you, what are some of the things that are concerning to you though in the NFT community?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's concerning to me in the NFT community, I have a couple things. One of them is mental health.
Okay.
I think like, while Clubhouse is amazing, there's also a lot of pressure associated with selling your artwork, with being successful, and there can be a lot of feelings of I don't measure up, because you're constantly hearing people that come up on Clubhouse to talk about their artwork selling, and maybe you're not selling as fast,
Yeah.
or and I think that that creates a lot of pressure, especially if people are selling, I have a lot of friends in the NFT space that are selling their artworks for like crazy amounts of money, and I'm really excited for them, but it also puts a lot of like, it makes me feel like nothing sometimes a little bit.
Right.
So I think that that exists everywhere, and then also just like the interaction with a lot of different people, there are also negative interactions, and I think those can really affect your mental health. And it's a lot easier for people to say something to a phone than it is for them to say something to someone's face.
Face. Yeah.
And so I think that that can definitely be one of the concerning things. Another concerning thing, and this is just exists everywhere, but like the way that women are underrepresented in NFT space. And I think like it's more representation than traditional art. I was actually thinking about like the other day, I was like, wow, it's so great. Women are so empowered, but at the same time, when we're looking at the top sales on OpenSea and Foundation, it's all white males. And
Right.
so I think like, and it's not just women, it's also, people of color, it's
Yeah.
also people who are not, who are LGBTQ. Like
Yeah.
it's all those communities that are marginalized. They're also marginalized in the
Yeah.
NFT space. And so I think like that's the other thing that is a problem. And while there are people that are on the forefront of fighting that, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And I've still gone into rooms where I hear someone saying, "Oh, I just don't want to hear anybody talk about their feelings in NFTs anymore." And like
Mhm.
directed at women as well, and it's like,
What?
did we really just create a room because we were annoyed that another room was people sharing their feelings about their NFTs, so we created a backlash room to trash on them? Like,
Yeah.
so there is a lot of stuff like bullying in the NFT space that's going on as well, and I think like even more so for women and marginalized groups. So yeah, I think both of those things are like concerning things that NFT space.
Those are really great pointers that you gave right there. I like that, and I agree with you. I see that because I do more listening than ever talking. I'm just always just listening, and only because I'm learning. I'm trying to absorb, and I'm just naturally like that. It takes I have to do an enormous amount of research and listening before I could even start to talk.
Yeah, I feel that.
So, but what I realized though is, yeah, I see that. I feel like there is a lot of pressure. There's people that'll come on stage and they'll say, "Oh, I haven't sold anything yet," and you can tell that they're like really down and out about it. Um, and remember, there's gonna be people coming into this space, being newcomers for a long time, because this is just the beginning. So we're gonna have reoccurring history of people going through those emotions and feeling like, do I measure up to creating NFT? So let's say there's an artist out there and they've never created an NFT before, and they're excited too because they see that finally I can, create something, and I can sell it online, and and somebody's going to be able to really, see my artwork and my creativity. And then, there's a very good chance that it's going to take a while for them to, build up that um, opportunity to actually happen for them. So for someone out there that's going through that or may go through that, what would you say to them?
Oh man. I think that's really tricky. Like, how do you give advice like for that? I mean, it's like,
What are some things that maybe they should understand so that they don't feel discouraged? Because I feel like people, I mean,
yeah.
it's pretty much the same thing when it comes to traditional art. There's a lot of artists that I mean, I've met artists that are amazing. I'm like, do you sell them in galleries? And they're like, no, I've never done a show. And you're like, you never done a show because they didn't have the courage, or maybe they tried once or twice and they were kind of like rejected, so they didn't feel like they measured up. But what do you think? What kind of advice would you give to someone who's feeling insecure about their art, but really wanting to do something in the NFT space?
I think honestly the best way to approach it is like to sit with the idea that your artwork, you're going into it rather than like saying, I need to make sales or having an expectation of making a sale or like any sales. Going in and saying, I want to introduce into this space like who I am.
Uh-oh, you froze. Okay. Did I lose you? Oh no, Carmen. Hold on.